Alicia Kearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it is a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And can I thank the gallant member for Honiton and Sidmouth for bringing forward this important debate. I was grateful for his cooperation in the last Parliament, not only on the issue of Ukraine, but also on the Balkans, which is an area of particular interest to us both. I'm very proud that over the last few years, the UK has consistently led international efforts to support Ukraine. The Conservative Party made sure that in government we were the party that stood behind Ukraine and were their first port of call. And we will continue with that same spirit in opposition to continue to be their safe harbour. Whether on pursuing justice through an international tribunal, seizing Russian state assets, supporting the ICC in its investigations, enforcing sanctions, or ensuring Ukraine had the weaponry it required to win, the UK must now continue to lead. I will start on a disappointing note because I was heartbroken to hear President Zelensky say that Britain's leadership in Ukraine has slowed down. It is vital the new government demonstrates the same commitment. It must be resolute. It is quite extraordinary for another world leader to criticise the UK, to criticise any partner publicly. And his words were that the UK has demonstrated true leadership in arms, politics and support for the Ukrainian people, and that this has saved thousands of lives. But now it has slowed down. The government will have our full support and those of everyone on the Conservative benches and indeed the party of the Honourable Member for Honiton and Sidmouth if they step back up to the plate. We cannot have our greatest ally question our support in any way at this time. Conversely, whilst they will have our full support if they do that, we will provide full scrutiny should that support slip. And I welcome today the contribution by the Honourable Lady for Abington and Oxford West, who has made similarly the same points, and also the member for Strangford, who have both been consistent not only in their support for Ukraine, but also for human rights around the world. A special tribunal on Russia's crime of aggression would formalise Russian culpability for the invasion of Ukraine. It would prevent Putin from embedding his counterfactual narrative into history, which we should be in no doubt he is seeking to do. It would ensure that brave women and men and children from Ukraine, like Nika from my team who joins us in the audience today, does not suffer from Russia attempting to rewrite their history, to eradicate their truth. And it would give survivors their day in court, showing beyond doubt that the world cares and listens and that they will be heard. It would also demonstrate, as the Honourable Gentleman Honiton said, that even members of the UN Security Council are not immune from international law. Now, the moral case for seeking justice for Russia's crime of aggression is indisputable, and the role of the government is to find the legal means to deliver it. None of us should pretend it is easy. It is not. And G7 countries have grappled together to find a way in which to deliver this. Now, the crime of aggression was adopted into international law by the UN General Assembly in 1971. And as the Honourable Jennifer Strangford set out, the definition agreed by the UN makes clear that there is a clear case for Russia to answer. Rather than repeating the list that he provided, I would just add a few others. The sponsorship of armed irregulars since 2014, the so-called little green men in Donbass, is an additional reason to bring this forward. But also there is a case against Belarus for allowing the use of its territory as a launchpad for the invasion. Now, why a special tribunal? As the Honourable Lady from Oxford West and Abington stated, neither Ukraine nor Russia are parties to the Rome Statute, meaning the ICC cannot prosecute Russia for their acts of aggression. Unlike in other areas, for example, Putin's abduction of Ukrainian children. Now, Ukraine is clear that the world must devise an alternative legal route for justice, as the initial crime leading to all subsequent atrocities, ensuring accountability for this is key. Likewise, we need to demonstrate a flexibility and determination to guarantee accountability for crimes both dissuades future breaches of international law and strengthens it in an increasingly dangerous world. Ukraine and the principle of justice demands a solution, and the government we devoted a huge amount of time and energy to trying to deliver one. The UK is a part of the core group of 40 states working on a deliverable form of tribunal. We led on the G7 proposals for a hybrid tribunal, which would solve some of the issues around immunity and legitimacy. And as the Honourable Gentleman said, there was the special conference in London on the topic of a special tribunal where I contributed to the communiqué that was published. Now, whilst the moral case for a special tribunal is clear and it has a firm basis in international law and in the UK, under the previous Conservative government, whilst we led efforts to find it, it was not straightforward, and we need to now hear how the government intends to carry on this important work. Ukraine has made clear that a special tribunal on its territory with elements of international involvement is not possible without changes to their constitution, and they cannot deliver that during a time of martial law. Likewise, the conventional route of establishing a special international tribunal through the UN Security Council is blocked due to Russia's veto. So finally, the tribunal must find a form that allows Russia's leadership to be tried in absentia, to the point around the conversation that took place in this debate about individual culpability, but we must make sure that diplomatic immunities are given in domestic courts must be dealt with. There have been suggestions of holding the tribunal in a third country, and the Dutch government has now stepped forward and reportedly expressed its willingness to host this special court. Given the Netherlands has a long history of hosting international human rights courts, this would seem an intelligent and practical option. However, it still requires an international mandate, and yes, Lord Cameron, as Foreign Secretary, supported the Council of Europe's work to establish a viable special tribunal in cooperation with Ukraine. And now today I would urge the UK to lobby for a vote at the UN General Assembly in September to establish a special tribunal in a third country in conjunction with the Netherlands. Holding Russia accountable for the crime of aggression is vitally important, but it requires imagination and drive in the face of deeply complex legal questions. As the war approaches its third year, the form of a viable tribunal would appear to be now taking shape. A special tribunal held in a third country, established by treaty between the Council of Europe and Ukraine, and supported by wider membership in the UN General Assembly, and that is the best route to justice. Our work in government got us to this point, and we sincerely hope the current government maintains the focus necessary to finish the job. So my questions, Mr. Chairman, are first for an update on any discussions held with my friend, the Prosecutor General of Ukraine, Andriy Kostin. Has the Minister for Europe held discussions with his Ukrainian counterpart on establishing the tribunal? Does the government support now a special international tribunal held in a third country? Can they update on any progress made by the Council of Europe on agreeing that format? What conversations is the government having with non-European partners to secure their support for an international tribunal? And what form does the government see as best placed to solve the diplomatic immunity issues of Russia's leaders? Finally, can the Minister also confirm that strong representation, is made to Mongolia following their failure to arrest President Putin when he was on their soil this week? In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, the crime of aggression is clearly defined in international law. It includes supporting irregular forces against a state, bombardment, invasion, occupation and annexation. It is the original sin from which all of Russia's other crimes have come and now must be tried. A special tribunal could determine formally that Russia committed an act of aggression against Ukraine, a peaceful neighbouring state. That would cement truth into history and block Putin's revisionist nonsense from taking root. Truth is fundamental to the future. And atrocity denial is a deliberate attack on victims and survivors, and Ukrainians know this more than most, having endured years of the Holodomor denial under the Soviet Union and continued lies by Russia. Putin understands the power of narrative and deliberately uses a warped past as a weapon to justify present wrongs. And the impetus, therefore, for a special tribunal on Russian aggression is clear, but yes, the legal route is complex. The work of the Conservatives and government with support across the House and in partnership with our allies has brought us close to a solution. Now we need to see this delivered for every Ukrainian who has suffered, for the victory of right over wrong, and to set a precedent to tear other oppressor states from their own acts of aggression. I thank the Honourable Member again for Honiton and Sidmouth for calling this important debate, and I genuinely wish the Minister every success in his efforts, because they are complex, they are thorny, but we finally have a way ahead, and there seems there is international consensus. Thank you, Chair.